It's me, Ellie Krug with Ellie 2.0 Radio, the only radio show podcast dedicated to idealism and idealists that's hosted by a transgender woman. Yes, you are literally listening to history in the making. You are. Someday somebody's going to say, we can't believe that happened. Okay? All right? A year from now, who knows whether it'll still be able to happen, but we won't dwell on that at the moment, okay? But woohoo for you and me. And boy, do we have a great show for you today. The big interview is with Dr. Aaron Rathke, the newly appointed superintendent for the school district for which I am an elected director, and you will really like hearing from this idealist, trust me. She's very, very contagious. And of course, contagious in the way of her excitement and enthusiasm. And of course, as always in the C Block, I'll talk about my work as an idealist, as someone working to change the world for the better. But here in our A Block, as we always do, let's talk about this week's featured idealist, Ali Velshi, the MSNBC weekly host who speaks fast and hard and whom I have adored. That is the right word. Adored for years. And if it sounds like I'm fangirl gushing, it's because I am. It's true. Who is Ali Velshi? Well, the first thing to know about him is that he is actually Canadian, but originally born in Nairobi, Kenya in 1968 or 69. According to Wikipedia, they can't get the year figured out. His family, which is of Muslim Indian descent, moved to Toronto in 1971 when Ali was 2 to 3 years old. Originally, Velshi's family lived in South Africa under apartheid, but then moved to Kenya to escape apartheid, and then eventually they moved, as I said, to Canada. Velshi started in broadcast journalism as a general assignment reporter for a Toronto TV station. When he was 30 years old, he joined the Canadian version of Bloomberg News and hosted Canada's first primetime business news hour. In September 2001, what great timing he had, he joined CNN's business news channel and moved to the U.S. At CNN, he did both business and political reporting. A decade later, Velshi left CNN to join Al Jazeera America to host a weekly program called Real Money with Ali Velshi. He was with Al Jazeera until April of 2016 when Al Jazeera America shut down its network. I don't know about you, but I'd sure like to have them back because they were a great, I thought, independent voice of news here in America. Subsequently, Velshi started with NBC and MSNBC, where he's had a variety of programs. I became familiar with him when he started substituting for the great Lawrence O'Donnell. Presently, Velshi has a 2-hour weekend morning show titled Velshi, very innovative. Now, the reason I so like Ali Velshi is that truly he is an idealist. He's upfront on his opinions and clearly believes that things he says or does can make a positive difference. For example, on his weekend show, he has the Velshi Banned Book Club, where he talks to the authors of various banned books. I mean, I just love that, and I'm still waiting for getting to Ellen, my memoir, to be banned, and maybe I could get on his show. I know, there's a little selfishness there, self-interest. And just last week, he did a segment on missing and murdered Indigenous women. So that's just last weekend he did. And that's because it was Awareness Day for missing and murdered Indigenous women. According to him, we're at this point where 6,000 Indigenous women have gone missing. I don't even get me started. He's also, proud of his Muslim religion, and he's defended the Muslim community's right to build a mosque and Islamic center near Ground Zero in New York City. Velshi is the author of 2 books about money and investing, but earlier this month, so this is the 11th, so this book came out last week. Earlier this month, he came out with an idealistic book titled, quote, Small Acts of Courage, A Legacy of Endurance and the Fight for Democracy. The Amazon book description starts with this, and I just love it. It says it's a captivating family history that illustrates how small actions can have an outsized political impact. Small acts of courage matter. Sometimes they change the world. Our history books are filled with the stories of those who fought for democracy and freedom, for for idealism itself against all odds, from Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela to Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. These iconic struggles for social change illustrate the importance of engagement and activism and offer a template for the battles we are fighting today. But using the right words is often easier than taking action. Action can be hard and costly. So a few days ago, Ellie Velshi was on Jonathan Capehart's show on MSNBC. And Jonathan Capehart, who I also adore, interviewed Velshi about his new book. Brett, my lovely producer, is going to play a clip from that interview. It's going to be about 3 minutes long, but you're going to get if you've never heard Ali Velshi before, okay, you're going to get a sense of him. And those of you who know him, it will reinforce for you the power that this man has in the way that he just presents words. Okay, Brett, go ahead.
And we're going to play another passage from your audiobook. Listen.
My parents had a dedication to this cause of building a civil society. They had a passion for it, and both of them have seemingly endless reserves of patience combined with a knack for paying tremendous attention to detail. There are certain kinds of people. You put them on a committee, and within 6 months, they're running the damn thing. That was both of my parents. It's a sensibility that they have. Things have to get done, and things have to get done right. They weren't in it for social reasons, and they weren't in it for recognition. They were in it because they believed in it, and because they thrived in the minutia of it. They were equipped for the grind of it, so whether it was politics or social issues, they were involved all the time, nonstop. And as soon as my sister was old enough, she would enter that world as well.
Ellie, talk more about your family and this desire to serve.
Well, they grew up in South Africa. My grandfather was the youngest student at Mahatma Gandhi's ashram in South Africa, and they grew up with this sense of social justice and wanting to fight apartheid, but they couldn't. My sister and my parents were both born in a place where they couldn't vote because of the color of their skin, and they were so desperate to be involved in politics and civil society as full participants that once they got to Canada, which is where I grew up, they threw themselves into civil society and then ultimately politics. And what it led to was my father running for office in 1981 in a way that nobody else had before him as a South Asian, as a Muslim. And he lost that election. And it was a sort of a notable moment for me because I didn't realize people run in elections deliberately, knowing that they're going to lose just to be part of the dialogue. Ultimately, my father ran and won and broke some glass ceilings. But it was a sense of fighting to make sure that everybody has equality in society. And if everybody doesn't enjoy it, then none of us do. And that is an ethos I wasn't even sure I was absorbing, Jonathan, all these years. And it turns out that it has filtered down to me, from my great-grandparents to my grandparents to my father, my mother, my sister, and over to me, that injustice is around us, and it's our job to fight it.
Well, that gets to the subtitle of your book, The Fight for Democracy. Your book is as much about the journey of your family and the journey that they've taken across generations as it is the fight for democracy. I was going to ask you to explain that for us, but you kind of just did.
Yeah, and it's this inclusive democracy, right? One of the things, when my parents grew up in apartheid South Africa, I don't know whether it was 5 or 6% of the population had the right to vote. Democracy was fantastic for them. They had a real democracy if you were white in apartheid South Africa. Everybody else didn't. And so that's how we have to look at things now, that while there are those among us who do not enjoy the same rights we have, the same access to voting, the same access to marrying whom you want, the same access to making reproductive decisions, then none of us have it, right? And I think the vice president made that point in Atlanta. He said men have got to look at reproductive rights and say, this is our problem too. And that's the ethos with which I grew up, and that is that everybody needs to enjoy the same rights. It can't be democracy for most of us, democracy for some of us. It's got to be democracy for all of us. That's a battle that I grew up understanding was crucial. And weirdly, I didn't expect this 54 years after my parents arrived in North America, that we'd still actually be fighting it. We'd be in that arena as we are today.
Thanks, Brett. So, he said some really incredibly important things about the need for inclusive democracy, that everyone needs to enjoy the same rights. and that most importantly, it's about serving, that our job is to fight injustice, and that things have to get done. These are incredibly important concepts, and it does take work. It does. And sitting on the couch, okay, isn't going to get us there. So, if you get a chance, check out his book, Ali Velshi. He is our idealist for this week. Please check him out. He's got a great show on the weekends. I think it's on the morning, at least on Saturday morning. He may be also on Sunday morning. I'm not certain. But it's a name to remember. I would love to see him have his own show, primetime, because he's the kind of personality that I like, sort of like Rachel Maddow, that I think that you just kind of grab onto because he is so idealistic. All right. That's all we got for our featured idealist of the week. I hope you enjoyed that clip. I hope you enjoy me doing this. If you like what you hear, visit my website, elliekrug.com. Follow me on Twitter. I'm still on Twitter, or X, or whatever we call it, even though I detest Elon Musk. And when we come back from our break, we'll do the big interview with Dr. Aaron Rathke. Okay, you're listening to me, Ellie Krug, on Ellie 2.0 Radio. Thanks.
And then I think about my fear of motion. I'll be an army, no, you're not gonna stop me getting through. I'll sing a marching song and stomp through the halls louder than you.
And we're back. Ellie 2.0 Radio. So make sure you check out Ali Velshi and consider buying his book, Quite the Idealist. And I'm thrilled that, even Amazon put the word idealist into its description of the book. Okay, now I am thrilled for you to meet another idealist, a huge idealist. I am absolutely, off the, top of the hill, or whatever, happy that I have Dr. Aaron Rathke on for the big interview. Dr. Aaron, welcome to Ellie 2.0 Radio. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited that you asked me to be here. I can't wait.
And for those of you who, if you catch the YouTube Facebook Live shot of this show, you're going to see that when I was doing my seat dancing to introduce this segment, so was Dr. Aaron.
I've been practicing.
I just got to tell you, out of nearly 330 shows, you're the only guest who's ever seat danced with me. Just so you know that, okay? All right. So Aaron Rathke, you are on my show, and you are a friend as well as a colleague. I am thrilled to make sure that everybody in the audience knows that you are the newly installed, superintendent of Eastern Carver County Schools. I mean, we barely got, you barely got the dust off of it, having gotten, voted in by the board the week before last. And I'm just absolutely thrilled to have you on here because I wanted to have you on the show because you are an idealist. And let's begin with getting the audience to have some idea about you, okay? All right, tell us, you started out as a teacher, but give us the 211.
Yeah, and I'll try to keep it brief. I've been in education almost 25 years, and it doesn't seem like I could possibly be that old, but I am proud of the journey that I've had as an educator. And, first I just want to say my dad was a teacher and my dad was a principal, and I felt really strongly about following in his footsteps. And I want to say that because it's going to land to my last question about why I'm an idealist.
Sure.
But I started out my career as a teacher. I taught for over a decade. And I say that because I wasn't in a hurry to be a leader, because I loved kids and loved being in the classroom, and spending my days with students has just been a complete honor.
Hold on. What? Because I know people are going to wonder, what did you teach and what grades?
Well, I taught high school, mostly high school. I've had a little middle school experience, but mostly high school for almost the entire over a decade. And I taught physical education. I taught health. I've done career and college things. Especially as a new teacher, I taught a lot of electives. And so mostly physical education and health.
I didn't know you were the PE teacher. Oh my God.
Yes, of course. When I started teaching, I thought that I remember coming home and thinking, I can't believe they're paying me to do this.
Oh God.
Because I just have such a high value of kids finding their self-image and their self-esteem and how they feel about their body and how they think about their mind. And so physical education and health was my absolute passion. And then I was in a really large suburban district, and then I moved to an urban district. So I was in Minneapolis Public Schools, which taught me so much about how to think about creative teaching and learning. I was a teacher in Minneapolis. I was an instructional coach. So I taught and did some instructional coaching.
Okay.
Which was amazing because every time I said we should do this, people could come into my classroom and see that I was doing it too. So it was a great balance for me as I was stepping into a different role. I was a school improvement specialist. So if you remember, No Child Left Behind. And when schools were not making AYP, which was average yearly gains, then you would get on this list and you would need support. So I supported schools that needed some support around school improvement and having better gains with students. So I learned a ton about how to help and lead in that way. And then I was an assistant principal. I was a principal, an assistant superintendent, and now a superintendent.
What a wonderful background. Okay. Broad-based. I love it that you were in the classroom for so long. I just think it's incredibly important that particularly our superintendents have that kind of background.
Yes.
Now, I know that you have a special story to tell about you becoming the principal at a middle school, and it's a school that it's a very incredible story, in part because it reflects that you were willing to bend. Okay, you were willing to grow as a consequence of the students. And I think it says a lot about you, and frankly, I think it had a lot to do with why you are now the superintendent of Eastern Carver County Schools. So will you share that story with the audience, please?
Yes, I'd love to. And I hope somebody out at Justice Page Middle School, listens because, and I said a lot during my interview. I'm one person, and this is a story of many. But I became the principal at Ramsey Middle School is what it was called. And on my first day of school, I'm out, there's these majestic stairs outside of the school that I loved. And I talked about this grand entrance that kids would walk into. And so I was standing out there, and I can remember what I was wearing. I had an orange shirt on, I had blue capri pants on, and I had my sunglasses on, and I'm out high-fiving and saying hi to kids. And they had stickers on that said rename Ramsey. And they had a big X across their t-shirt that said Ramsey. And I was like, oh, this is a lot for a first day of school principal. And our students just generated so much momentum around their voice. And they wanted their school name something different. They would tell us, they would tell their teachers, they would tell their parents that it was not reflective. That name was not reflective of who they wanted to be and where they were going. And two really amazing teachers really cultivated their voice, and they kept the pressure on me as the principal because I was kind of like, could we wait? Could we let me be the principal for a little bit? But they were not going to let up. And, I told this story, and it's really important because I just had no idea what the kids were going to do for me. And they did something amazing, but it changed me. But I wrote my first day of school letter. You sent it out to the families. And I said, Ramsey Middle School creates world changers. And I just had no idea how they were going to change the world for themselves and for their community and for me. I'm going to start crying.
How did you settle on, Justice Page? I mean, former, Minneapolis football player. Okay. But how did you settle on Justice Page?
So the kids did a bunch of research. We embedded it in all their classes. So they were doing research. They were thinking about what names they wanted to be. They did a lot of engagement with the community, alumni, their parents, their peers. And they had a handful of names, but I am telling you, when Justice Page came up as a name, it's like you could almost feel the fire. It was like people were like, I really like that. And we didn't say Alan Page. We said Justice Page.
Yeah.
And he talked at one of our opening ceremonies, and he talked about that justice was intentional and that it makes a noise. And that meant something to that group of people. And so there was voting and lots of voice in that. And so ended up landing on Justice Page Middle School.
Hold on, Aaron. We should make sure for the listeners that are not in Minnesota, and we have listeners across the world, that they understand that Alan Page went from being a renowned football player with the Minnesota Vikings, then to he was a lawyer. He went to law school. He was a lawyer, and then he was appointed to the Minnesota Supreme Court as a justice of the Supreme Court, and then ultimately retired from the Supreme Court. Okay, I just want to make sure our world listeners understand why this word justice preceding Alan Page's name is so important. Go ahead.
And so critical in Minnesota. I mean, to your point, so critical in Minnesota. Well, so we had to ask the family, are you willing? And not only did our students get to meet Justice Alan Page and his wife Diane Page, but they changed policy in our school district, because originally the policy had stated that you couldn't name something after someone who was alive. But the kids had created such momentum and power in their voice that the school board ultimately, accepted that it was going to be Justice Alan Page. So on the last day of school of the day we changed our name, Justice Alan Page and Diane Page showed up on our steps and greeted all of our kids and just became an absolute picture inside of our school district. And so at the end, my last letter at the end of the year, I said, little did I know that they were really going to be world changers. Welcome to Justice Page Middle School. So it was amazing.
Well,
and
go ahead.
One other thing I wanted to share is, now when you drive by it, there are murals of Justice Page and Diane. There's lilies in one of the corners that are reflective of her favorite flower after she passed away. We wanted to make a tribute to her, but the kids designed that, painted it, our community did, and it's now on the wall. And so if you fly over Justice Page Middle School from an airplane, you can see them.
Well, it's just such a wonderful, touching story, and I fully appreciate why it's one that you wanted to share, as you were interviewing for the position. But more than that, it's about changing you. I mean, obviously, it had profound impact on you, and I think that it says a lot about you as a human, that you were willing to go with the flow and then to learn. I mean, literally, that's what you're talking about. So you were the teacher, but then the students ended up teaching you, right?
Yes. I really learned that the power of our students' voice. I did a podcast not that long ago, and it was called Trust the Kids. And I think we've already had our experience, and our kids they have a lot of agency in who they are and what they want. And I think we're creating experiences for them. And so they are our greatest teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about and shift a little bit here. I'm watching my time. That's why my head is turning every once in a while. Let's talk about the state of education here in Minnesota. First of all, Eastern Carver County Schools, we're graduating students at, what is it, about 96, 97, or 98% of our students are graduating from high school. That's at least 10 to 12 percentage points higher than the state of Minnesota generally. So our schools, which you head now, are doing great. But what's going on in this? Minnesota is renowned for its education system. We have, a governor that is, a former teacher. What give us like the quick 60-second about what's happening in education in Minnesota right now.
Well, I think the number one thing is the extraordinary amount of unfunded mandates that have come out of legislation this year. Really critical and important things that are benefits in lots of ways to the education as a whole in Minnesota. Example being the READ Act. science of reading and our commitment to literacy for all of our students is critical and will separate Minnesota from many states because of that commitment. But the financial implication to school districts is quite significant. And so those unfunded mandates are the number one thing that Minnesota's facing right now.
So let's talk about the READ Act just so people understand. Again, I got to get you away from all the acronyms so that people,
Yes.
understand. So essentially the READ Act is mandating that all the states, all the schools in Minnesota teach reading, teach literacy in a particular way. Do I have that right?
That is right.
Okay. And for some schools, even though here at Eastern Carver County Schools, we've been ahead of the curve about how we teach reading, but for many schools across the state and to some extent at Eastern Carver County, it requires that more people learn, right, the methodology of teaching the literacy, the way to read. And for some schools, it's like totally revamping the way they've been teaching reading, right?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. So one, there is a curriculum commitment that the state is asking us through the READ Act. So buying curriculum, which is an expensive mandate. And so for some districts, if they're not in their curriculum adoption cycle, they might not have budgeted for it. So
curriculum is like books and other learning materials, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And
I'm just trying to keeping it English
Perfect.
here.
Good at that. I know we hang out with educators, so then we'd have a certain language. So that's
Right.
a good reminder. And then the second is the professional development. So the professional learning that our teachers need and the mandate that all teachers K-3 are needing to have this professional development and eventually K-5 and then K-12. And so
Right.
really critical amounts of learning for our teachers.
Right. But the state says, we've got to do the READ Act. They provided a little bit of money, but not a whole lot of money because we don't want our educators. This is on top of their regular jobs. So they've got to get this extra training around the READ Act. And we're certainly not going to ask them to do that for free, right? But the state's not giving us all the money that Eastern Carver, as well as the other school districts, need in order to pay the teachers to learn the READ Act, right?
That is correct. So for our Eastern Carver County Schools, we've committed a pretty large amount of money, about $250,000 outside of anything that the state has given.
Yep. Then we have other unfunded mandates. For example, we've got, thank God, we've got universal breakfast and lunch for our students. It's no longer, it's free for everybody. But again, the state has given us some money, but not all the money needed for that. Am I right?
That is correct. Really important and I think critical time in our students' day is making sure that they're fed. And if our kids are hungry, they don't have as much opportunity to learn. And so it's really important and critical, although it's increased participation in breakfast and lunch. And then again, not fully funded.
Yeah, and then we've got some other issues. I mean, I am totally in favor of providing unemployment insurance for our bus drivers and our other our paraprofessionals who are on break over the school year, but they're not they don't have contracts that otherwise would ordinarily provide for them. So the state provided that they can get unemployment insurance, but the state did not increase for the school districts the amount of money to pay for that unemployment insurance. Is that right?
That is correct. I think that's one of the things that we keep talking about. All of the things are great ideas. It was a large amount of initiatives, and the scope of unfunded mandates is putting a lot of pressure on the district.
And I'm watching our time, but I want to get two more things in. The first is, don't we have great teachers at Eastern Carver County Schools? Great educators and paras and everyone that's interacting with our students. Isn't it a wonderful team out there?
It is. And it is one of the reasons I wanted to be the superintendent here. And I have never seen a community so behind their teachers and educators and staff. It makes this district very special.
Yeah. And I'm just on the school board, so what do I know? But I mean, I've been able to go into some of the classrooms to talk to some of the kids and to see our educators at work. I just always tear up. I'm not kidding you. I do, particularly when we go into the elementary school and we see the little kiddos, and so it's just, I just want to make sure that we make clear that we have a phenomenal group of educators. And if there's any educator out there, looking to make a move, consider Eastern Carver County Schools.
Come to Eastern Carver County. Good plug.
Yeah, and I appreciate, having a child learn in front of you. Like, you literally can see, am I right? The light bulb go off. You can literally see they connect the dot and their life changes as a result. Just being able to read words, right?
Well, we have the wonderful opportunity to lay foundations for kids for their entire future. We are setting them up and get to share moments with them that will shape them for the rest of their life. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Okay, now I want to ask you, all right, about being an idealist, okay? And I've got to tell you, I would not want, as our superintendent, somebody who wasn't an idealist. I'm just being very frank with you, because we need people who do believe in the power of individual humans to make a positive difference.
Yeah.
So, first of all, do you consider yourself an idealist? And secondly, what made you that way? How'd you get there, Erin?
So I do believe that I am. And I think that I show up that way in spaces because I think that the possibilities could be endless and I don't want to be limited by what's in front of me. But two things. Well, one, I would say I looked up what idealist meant, and it was like high and noble principles. So that's why I started out with talking about my dad is, when I became a teacher, I just thought I had picked the most noble and important profession. And that's how we talked about it at our house. And that's what my family thought it was. And so when I got there, I just thought I had picked the most important thing that I could spend my professional life doing. So that's one. But the second thing that I wanted, and I wrote it down because I wanted to be ready to answer this question, is one time I read that transformation was being able to imagine something that was not already created. And so when I use the word transformational, I know that we're creating something that maybe hasn't been created yet. So when you think about barriers and students that have been marginalized in our system, there is still something yet to be created. So that's not happening. That to me is transformation. And so I believe that we're going to create something and can create something that doesn't already automatically exist in our education system. That to me is what makes me an idealist.
Oh, God, I love it. I love it. And certainly at Eastern Carver County Schools, we've had some challenges, and we've created a whole new model around how to deal with historical structural issues around racism, around skin color, around socioeconomic class. And our model is being, we've got other school districts coming to Eastern Carver County Schools asking about how we've been so successful, right?
We are trying to be a North Star of how we think about all kids and those particularly who are farthest from justice inside of our system, for sure.
Yeah, and there's that justice word again. Look at that,
Yes.
huh?
Yes.
Well, Dr. Erin Rathke, I am thrilled again to have you as the superintendent for Eastern Carver County Schools. And I'm thrilled that you're my friend and colleague. I am, okay? And thank you for being on this show. I look forward to what you're going to do as, now that you have free reign, okay?
Yes.
You've got license.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me, Ellie. And I am also glad that you are my colleague, and I am excited to be the superintendent at Eastern Carver County Schools.
Okay. Well, that's great. We'll let some time go on, and maybe we'll have you back to talk about how you've rocked it, because I know you're going to. All right?
Thank you. I'd love to.
Okay, listeners, we've been talking to Dr. Erin Rathke, the Brandley, yeah, that's a good word, Elle, newly installed superintendent at Eastern Carver County Schools out in Carver County, Minnesota. When we come back from our break, I'll do my C block and talk about my work as an idealist. We'll be back in a second. we're back. Ellie 2.0 Radio. I hope you enjoyed Dr. Erin. She is just a very, very down-to-earth person, and I am just so thrilled to be able to work with her going forward. And I look forward to what she will do for our school district. Okay, now I want to pick up on it for my C block here where I talk about my work as an idealist. I want to pick up on a theme from Ali Velshi, what he spoke about his parents becoming involved. I mean, they must have been in their, I'm going to guess, in their 30s or 40s, maybe, I don't know, maybe even older than that. I'm not certain about when they moved to Canada. But they became involved in the community. I mean, and now these were folks that were immigrants. Okay. They weren't Canadian. And it struck me. I mean, I am, and this is no put down on anybody. Okay. Please understand that. But I am 67 years old, living on a street with many retirees, and almost none of them are involved in anything related to social justice, as far as I can tell, or civil society. Although my next door neighbor, God love her, she volunteers at a food bank several times a week. And I'm not criticizing any of them. Okay. I mean, retirement is how you make it. They're winding down, though. They've wound down. And me, God, I'm winding up. I mean, at this point, it's several nights a week that I'm out at meetings. Poor Jack, my pup, staying home, waiting for me to come home. I just got recruited by the Women's Foundation of Minnesota to be a trustee on their board. Great organization, let me also tell you that. But I was honored that they would recruit me, and I'm honored that that's the third board that's recruited me within the last 2 years. And I am honored that that happens because it allows me to be able to give my voice to organizations that are doing incredibly important work. I think it's in my blood to be involved, to be pushing, to work for change, to protect, to speak for those who lack voices. And obviously that's what makes me an idealist. But we need more. We do. We need more people like the Velshi family, more people like Ellie Krug. Not that I'm anybody great. Trust me. Okay. I got my faults. Trust me. Sit down. Let's have a glass of wine. I'll tell you about them all. Okay. But we need to have more people involved. We do. And for those who are listening right now, we do have, I joked in the A block about, what it might be like a year from now, but we need you. If you're ever going to get up off that couch, if you're ever going to get involved, this is the time. This is the year for you to do that. It is. Because God forbid, we may lose all kinds of opportunities to be involved if the election goes the wrong way. I'm just trying to tell you that. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but I'm just trying to let you know that. Okay, now, more about Ellie Krug as an idealist. So on Sunday, this past week, I was in Prior Lake at the Holy Trinity United Methodist Church. I did gray area thinking for 2 hours. We had about almost 50 people there. And you may remember a week ago, last Sunday was probably the most gorgeous day of the whole darn year. And I'm thinking, how many people are we going to get to come today? Because this is like a gorgeous day. But we had almost 50 people there. And we did gray area thinking, and my goodness, did they react to it? I mean, we were laughing. We had people sharing intimate, not like totally intimate, but stuff that they don't ordinarily share with people. We had some people emotionally touched by the workshop, and someone called gray area thinking what they were going through. They came up to me and they said, Ellie, you're leading a movement. This is a movement. That was the word they used. And I'm like, and then they wrote it down on a sheet of paper. And I'm like, holy cow, I wish it was a movement. I really do. I mean, it was wonderful to hear that phrase, but for gray area thinking, for the work that I am trying to do, for it to be a movement, I've got to be standing in front of a whole lot of more people in a whole lot of different places. I do. I mean, and it breaks my heart to tell you, I am done I've got to give a 10-minute talk. They're only going to give me 10 minutes in front of lawyers next week. It's part of a dinner, but I the first they want to give me 5, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to come for 5 into St. Paul. And like, okay, well, we'll give you 10. But other than that, next week, there's nothing for 3 weeks for me to speak anywhere. Now, June, thankfully, I'm busy, but after that, it drops off. Again, part of this is, the anti-wokeism. This is about fear about LGBTQ plus. I'm just reading this morning. There's a story about Target pulling LGBTQ sale items, themes with rainbows on them, pulling them from their stores because they don't want to repeat of all the controversy they had last year. That's fear. I have great respect for Target. Target protected trans people when other major companies weren't doing that. So, you're not going to get me to say anything negative about Target, but it's reflective of fear. And that fear is driving a whole lot of stuff. And that may be the fear that's keeping a whole lot of people on the couch. And I'm just here to tell you, okay? I'm just here to tell you, for me to have a movement, which I would love to have a movement grounded in messages about compassion and kindness, a message about how not to be afraid of those who are other, a message about how to take risks, that we need to take risks to become familiar with those who are different from us, because once we take those risks and we become familiar, we find out they ain't different than I am. They're not. But right now, many people don't know that because they're afraid. They're afraid to engage. Are you kidding me? You give me a movement, I will lead it. You better believe it. I'll empower as many people as possible in that movement. I would lift them up. I would lift as many humans as possible up. You give me a movement, I would change this society as much as possible. Okay, now I'm like going off on a tangent. Sorry about that, but you can see how passionate I am, even at this advanced age of 67, how passionate I am about making this world a better place. Because as Ali Velshi said, there are a whole lot of people who don't have justice, a whole lot of people whose voices are not heard, a whole lot of people who are suffering, and it is our obligation, our collective obligation, our individual obligations to change that landscape. Oh, I'm going out, Brett, I'm going out on the show on a very high note, a very high soapbox.
Get fired up Ellie at the end.
Okay, I guess on that note, everyone, well, maybe that's why you tune in every week. Maybe that is why. All right, Brett, you are the best. You are. I say that every week, and I mean that. And to you, my listeners, you are the best. Please tell others about this show, will you? Tell them about this, transgender woman who gets going about needing to change the world, And boy, if that's the worst thing that anybody ever says about me, I will wear that on the front of my forehead, okay? Because I believe in it. I do. And I believe in you. So between now and when you hear my voice next, go out. Do something. Be kind. Do something to change the world. Ellie Krug, over and out.